Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for joining. Just a very quick kind of introduction of who I am and what Today I Did It Right is. So Today I Did It Right is a daily approach and journal, and it's all about a practice of how are you creating a right life for you every single day. And I built this approach with my life mentor, a woman named Betsy, who is 40 years older than I am. We became unexpected friends when I was graduating college and she was exiting the workforce. So she was retiring, and we were both navigating these big life transitions and both asking the same question: how do we do this right? When no one else is giving us a playbook, when there's not an expected path of what comes next, how do we have the tools that we need to make choices for ourselves every single day? And so Betsy and I set out on an 8-year long quest. That might have not been lagom, that might have been too much, but we took 8 years to be very thorough, and we just really observed how we actually lived our lives. We didn't talk about what we aspirationally wanted for ourselves or what we would do in the future. We really looked at how we spent our time, who we spent our time with, what we were doing, and what felt right for us. So we took those 8 years of notes, I'm not kidding, thousands of pages, and a different kind of scientific approach from Nick. This is all observation based. And we created the Today I Did It Right approach. And so what we realized is that if we do one of these things each day, we can go to bed saying, today we did it right. And then the practice of journaling and writing it down is when you really can start solidifying it and building it into habits. And so to give you some examples of the rights, so the approach is that there's 16 rights, which seems like a lot, but once you know them, you never forget them. And they're really broad, but they're guided yet broad. So it's not something that you have to do every single day, right? But the fact that it's more lagom, right? So it can be broad as one of the rights is just say yes. So anytime you just say yes to something, right, it will be very different for me as it is for Gina, as it is for Anik, as it is for Tara, as it is for Amanda. But if you just say yes to something and you recognize it and you practice that muscle, that's doing it right. And so I would love to lead you in 3 different prompts today of how this is going to work. So I've tied a right from the Today I Did It Right approach to the concepts we've talked about with a bonus one, which is my favorite Swedish concept I just learned about. And I'm going to give you a few minutes to write. And then, as Gina said, I'm going to invite, if anyone would like to share, just in the interest of time, I'm going to limit it to 3 people. So if you want to share and with the group afterwards, just say, hi, I'm okay with sharing, and I'll call on you. Otherwise, you can type your answer into the chat, and either one will get you an entry into winning the next ice cream. So sound good? Cool. Okay, so lagom, right? So again, what we talked about, just enough, that concept, enough is as good as a feast. This is really about like mindfulness and how you know what is enough. And this is also collectively like when people know when something's enough. So the prompt is tied to the right, which is called Life's Little Rituals, which is all about how do you incorporate your own habits, routines, rituals, like in your daily life that are very specific and nurturing to you. And so, and you know, right, the balance of these. When you have, if you say, I'm going to eat this way and work out this way and do all of these things all the time, right? It's too much and it's unsustainable, right? And then you kind of fall off. And if you have a goal of like, I'm going to meditate every day for the next 365 days, and then you fall off and then you feel bad about yourself and then you end the practice. This is about the rituals that are lagom that you can keep in your daily life on an ongoing basis. So the first prompt, and I will also drop it in the chat after I say it, is what do you do on a regular basis that makes you feel balanced and present in your everyday life? So what do you do on a regular basis that makes you feel balanced and present in your daily life? And I'll give you a few minutes and then we'll come back together. Anyone else want to share audibly or want to type in the chat?
Yeah, I'll just jump in. I know that I already wrote it, but yeah, I think it's one of those things that I didn't actually read in the morning or like drink my coffee pleasantly, but now that we have quarantine, I do. So I think it's a nice reflection that like, now that I found this kind of present moment, I think I'll carry it forward even when things do go back to a prior version of life.
Yeah. Yeah. Thanks for sharing.
To piggyback off that, I'm really similar. This is Anik from London, another American expat living abroad. Coffee is something I wrote down too, and having that present moment of quietness, but I think also going outside on walks, and someone wrote in the chat, phone-free walks. I've been doing that a lot as well, and that's been super helpful to make me feel present and balanced.
Thanks for sharing, Anik. Excellent. Thank you all for sharing. Yeah. And so I encourage you to continue like rooting in your ritual practice is keep track, right? Like make notes when you do this. And so how my reflection practice of this looks like when I write in my journal is like life's little rituals is when I call out like specifically I've done these things that bring me a lot of comfort, make me really grounded in my daily life. Because then I know if I'm having an off day, I know exactly what I need to come back to turn the day around and make it a right day. Okay, so question 2. Gekata. I have the Duolingo accent because all my Swedish is from Duolingo. So I sound like the woman who pronounces it from there. So sorry about that. But so yeah, active rising early in the morning. This is all really about being present. This is really about, looking forward to the day. And that's how I really interpret this, and taking notice of the small things. And I think so much of life, right, where we have the most impact and the place where we can have the most control is this awareness in the choices we make, right? If we are really paying attention to our lives, we are able to change our behavior if we need to, or double down on the behaviors that work best for us. But if we don't have that awareness, and so if we're not listening to the birds in the morning or any of the other things that are right in front of us, we don't have the ability to really make a choice related to them because we're not even aware that they're happening. And so that awareness is so key. And, a lot of people call it mindfulness, being present. Today I did a right world, we call it paying attention. And so this prompt is tied to the right, which is called be a noticer. And being a noticer is all about paying attention. And so the next question, which I will put in the chat again, is what have you been looking at that you can finally see? And so being a noticer, paying attention, what have you been looking at that you can finally see? I can share mine that I've really noticed since the pandemic hit is that I had a sense that I was traveling too much for work. And I was always like, why am I so exhausted? Like, why do I feel unsettled? I'm so unsure. Like, everything's so great. And then now that I can't travel, I'm like, oh, this is why. And I was looking at it, I knew it, but I couldn't fully see it. So that's been a big one that I've realized in the last 3 months. Okay, so the third question, when I was interviewing my friend, she shared another Swedish concept with me, which this is where the beautiful nuance of language comes in, right? Like, and I love how there's all of these, as you travel or as you experience friends from different cultures and different nations, and if they share words with you, right, that don't translate exactly to English. And so when you try to, a lot of the meaning gets lost. And this is where just the nuance of language is so beautiful and how it can open us up to things like we don't necessarily think about things the same way. So the term, which I'm going to say this slowly because there's many syllables and I will get it wrong, but it is called Undantagstillstand. And if you do a direct translation, it means state of emergency. And there's like all of these things that, like how you prepare for it. But that's not how she described it to me. It's much more nuanced. She says it's really how she views it as a state of exception. And when you are in Undantagstillstand, the old rules are thrown out the window, right? How you used to operate or how things used to operate, it's not exactly the same. And so in these states of exception, you have some slack to figure out life in a new way and figure out how you operate in a new way. And I think that that term, right, is incredibly poetic and relevant to how we're all navigating the complete shift of the last 3 months, is that we're all in a state of exception. And so if we're all in a state of exception and the rules don't apply, how are you going to change your rules moving forward, right? That feel more right to you, because the wheel has slowed down, right? It's come to a stop. Anything that you were focusing on before maybe has shifted or looks different. Your priorities and values might be different. So I want you to think about being in the state of exception. And this prompt is tied to the right, which is called SOS, which is sense of self, and which is really what Today I Did It Right is all about, is how do you really practice and find your sense of self and ground in that with confidence. But the prompt, right, is how has 2020, the year, how has 2020 impacted your identity? So either how have you changed? How has a piece of your identity changed? Or how have you cemented into a piece of your identity, right? Because we don't always have to be doing something new. It could just be a greater awareness about something that already exists. So in your state of exception, the question is, how has 2020 impacted your identity? How have you changed or cemented into yourself? Okay, people are starting to share, so let's come back together. Yeah, so we'll start reading. I know you all can read them too, but changing the way we value exercise at home. Yeah, this is a big one, right? That's an identity shift for a lot of us who've completely changed that part. Found that activism and noble work, something you're truly passionate about. Yeah, I feel like this has, the last few months has really confronted us with where we could be having a bigger impact if we're, when we pay attention, and where we could be doing, I like that, noble work. You need to redefine and refine your purpose. Mm-hmm. Does anyone want to read theirs out loud?
I can read mine. I'll spotlight myself. So one key thing that came out of this time for me was the idea of busyness versus impact. So I was spending a lot of my time or efforts like pursuing a state of busy and being sort of knocked off the rails, as it were. I've reassessed that, like how my time is used, how my efforts are pushed out there. And now I'm able to think about like impact of time instead of just being busy. That's been a big shift.
Yeah, that's a big one. Thanks, Gina. Yeah, just reading, understanding my values. I think this is a big one, right? This is a huge shift, right? In this state of exception. When you take everything away, like what are we left with? What do we want for that, for ourselves? Reevaluate my interests, pivot a new direction. No one has all the answers. That is the truth. Would anyone else like to share?
Yeah, I would. I also have another thing to add is in the beginning of pandemic, I also started to learn how togetherness and being like hashtag in this together means at a whole another level. This is unlike what I've seen before, and it's just created an immense sense of gratitude and empathy in me, which I don't think without pandemic would have happened. Yeah, just that everybody came together in a totally different way, and then protest and everything else. So it's just it keeps adding on and adding on. So.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for sharing. Yeah, not needing the hustle and bustle of a city. Amanda, I resonate with that. I moved from Chicago to Sweden. The deer in the flower field, farm field is 5 minutes from my house. I completely understand that. It's a big shift, but it's different. Thank you all so much. If this, I'm going to turn it back over to Gina and Nix to close off, but if you like this practice, if you are interested in journaling, if you like this interactive workshop style, I do lead a free weekly workshop. It's called Morning Rightness. We meet at 8 a.m. Central on Wednesdays. If you can't make it, I also send out the recording. And it's basically just coaching people on how to build this daily journal practice. And so you can sign up. Again, it's for free. June just started last week, so we'll meet this Wednesday. and it's on our website, todayidititright.com, and just fill out the form and I'll add you to the Zoom invite. And then if you are interested in learning more specifically about Today I Did It Right, and you're looking for a journal, you're looking for a tool to help hold you accountable as you figure out your daily rightness, there is a special code for our Sweat Life community. Gina's got her journal, I love it. For the physical journal or a digital edition, the code is ASL15 and you can get 15% off. So, and if you have any questions, I'll also drop my email in the chat. Feel free to message me if there's something that you wanted to share but weren't comfortable sharing but want to talk about it. I'm here, would love to hear about how you're navigating your rightness. So thanks so much for having me.